The era in which the Holocaust is part of our living memory is slipping away. Soon it will just be history. The clock is ticking. The mission to educate future generations has never been more urgent. The Holocaust Educational Trust reaches over 70,000 students across the UK each year and brings Holocaust survivors into schools.
I'm standing before you this morning as a witness for the living and for the dead.
But there will come a time when Holocaust survivors are no longer with us. The Trust is pioneering a new project to address this reality.
Before my father died, he did start going to schools to talk about his wartime experiences. Sadly, he died 2.5 years ago, and all the more reason to remember what he went through. My father was David Herman. He was a Holocaust survivor. I was born here, so I'm second generation. I'm married to Philip. We have 3 lovely girls. My father managed to survive 5 concentration camps. He came to London with a group of orphan survivors in 1946, and he built a new life here. He was a really terrific man, very strong character, always had a twinkle in his eye. And since he passed away, we realised he had an important story to tell.
1 year ago, the Holocaust Educational Trust encouraged Julia and her sister Roz to explore ways to pass on their father's legacy to a new generation.
The Holocaust Educational Trust are piloting a project working with second generation, so children of survivors, to tell their parents' stories in schools around the country. People like Julia have willingly come forward and said, we want to pass on our parents' testimony, we carry their legacy and we want to take it into the classroom. So we're providing the support and the resources and helping make it happen.
The Trust have arranged for Julia to tell her father's story in a secondary school and are training her for her first presentation.
The Nazis decided to evacuate the camp. Can I stop? Sorry. This is wrong.
A few days before her first school presentation, and Julia is constantly rehearsing.
My father was a concentration camp survivor, and I'm here to tell you his story. At one point in his life, he looked like this. My children, my 2 eldest, have heard me tell my story for the first time, which I think was quite an eye-opener for them. I think my 12-year-old didn't realise quite what went on in World War II.
It's the day of Julia's first ever presentation at Broomfield School in Enfield. Before her talk, students take part in a Holocaust Educational Trust workshop.
I'm here today to tell you about my father, who was a Holocaust survivor. I've never spoken in public before. I've never told anybody his story. And I've certainly never spoken in a school before, so please bear with me. All the non-Jews were shipped out, and any other Jews were moved in, and that was where they had to live. Can you imagine that happening to you? Very, very difficult. And as they got off, his mother turned to him and said, stay together, look after each other, and don't trust anyone. She turned to my father and she said to him, I have lived, but you are so young. And that was the last thing she ever said to him. He never saw her again. They were separated on that platform that day, and he found himself alone. He heard people shouting that the camp had been liberated and that the war was over. He enjoyed his 4 children. He was happy to see his children get married and have families of their own. And he had 10 grandchildren. He eventually met the Queen in 2000. I don't know if any. I just want to thank you all for being so lovely and listening so nicely to me.
Because the way she showed us pictures and video clips, I kind of felt how she was feeling. It felt like I was there.
I think it's very important for grandchildren and their children to know about it, because it did affect the whole world. It kind of affected the whole century.
What was taught to us was really personal and effective.
more survivors' children should come and tell us all about what actually happened in the concentration camps.
The Holocaust Educational Trust is constantly striving to ensure that the Holocaust remains part of our living history.
Future generations need to keep telling the story and retelling it, and we must not forget.